And Ambassador, you mentioned there have been some difficult negotiations. Could you give us an idea of what in particular is proving troublesome for negotiators?
I think the very difficult question that we are looking at is how can we move from a system that foresees legally binding commitments only from a small, limited number of countries towards a more comprehensive regime where all countries, and especially the main economies, are accepting such legally binding commitments. And this is a shift of paradigm. And shifts of paradigm are always very difficult to achieve. They need a lot of work, they need some time, and it's also worth to invest that time in such a shift.
Is it too easy to read too much into the first week of negotiations at a conference like this? Do we read too much into the rumours and suggestions coming out of the conference centre, or do you think real progress is being made behind the scenes?
I would not say that it is wrong to give also a lot of weight to the first week of these two weeks of negotiations. If they wouldn't have any importance, we would reduce it to 1 week only. But it is true that during this first week we did not advance as much as we should have advanced in order to have an easy outcome available when the ministers are coming. But that shows also that because the questions, the very political questions, are so important and so political that it might be very difficult to get an agreement on negotiators' level on these issues. And we will need the ministers in the second week to help us to find a bridge between the different positions.
Switzerland is a small country, but it's always a country that's punched well above its weight. What role have you been playing, and what role do you think Switzerland can play in bringing countries together?
Well, Switzerland is indeed a small country, but that makes us perhaps also working a little bit different than other countries. We cannot come and say, well, this is the solution and either take it or we don't have a result at all. There are very few issues where you might also take such a strong position, but in general we are more trying to find solutions. But that does not mean that Switzerland takes an approach that we just are looking for a compromise. We are also a country that has very ambitious positions and very ambitious interests also in realizing these positions. So I would say we are not less ambitious, but perhaps even more ambitious than many others, but we are trying, the way how we feed in, the way how we contribute, the way how we find solutions might be a little bit different. We are looking quicker for allies, we are looking quicker to solutions that can be supported by others. We are not only looking at partners from the developed part of the world. Our group that we are chairing is an example of that. We also quickly try to find solutions that we can feed in together with partners from other parts of the world. And by developing an ambitious position like that, that is supported by countries from all around the world, that's already the first step towards something that could be accepted at the end.
Absolutely. And perhaps a Kyoto second extension was something that many people thought might not happen at this conference. But one thing a lot of people were confident about was the Green Climate Fund being pushed through. Now, there's been a lot of talk this week, and Venezuela and the USA have been not that keen about certain aspects of it. How sure are you that the Green Climate Fund can be resolved and can be rolled out by the time this conference is finished?
I'm confident that we'll be able to sort these open issues out. But I think there are two levels of questions that need to be solved in order to make this fund operational. The first level is the issues on which we are dealing now in the context of the Green Climate Fund. We have to address the issues that the US was raising. I think there are legitimate concerns, but they can be solved without opening the instrument. I think that should be possible. Other issues that have been put forward by some of the delegations, I think they are really reopening the great basic agreement that we had when launching the work towards that fund. We cannot go back behind the solutions that we have found in Cancun. It's the same question that we were struggling with in Cancun, already in Copenhagen. We found solutions for this question in Cancun, and based on these solutions, we were able to launch the process of the Transitional Committee, and I think we have to remain with that framework. That was the best possible compromise to be found.
Do you understand some developing countries' concerns that private enterprise might come in and exploit them if the Green Climate Fund is used as a mechanism for promoting private enterprise abroad?
Well, if the Green Climate Fund would be used in such a manner, of course that would be a risk, and we certainly as Switzerland wouldn't like such a fund. We don't want to establish a fund that is just helping private enterprise to exploit or to become too influential all around the world. So that is clearly not the intention of this fund, and that's the reason why we are not only supporting the fund as such, but also the approach taken by the fund to support also activities from the private sector that can help us to address the challenges of climate change.
A few more just on the negotiations. Switzerland, as you alluded to earlier, is part of an interesting group aimed to upholding the integrity of the negotiations. It's almost a group, it seems to me, that spans across the developing and developed worlds. Do you think it's important that more groups like that develop in order to avoid the splits, these clear splits that seem to appear between the developing and developed nations?
I think it is very important to have such groups. We do not need to have only such group, and at least we have one such group here in this context here. It's also in other processes, not only in climate change, but also in other areas like biodiversity, chemicals or waste, for example. Switzerland is working always together with a group that includes countries from all regions. So this is for us a way how we work. And it is really very helpful, it is very important also, because so that you bring into one group the perspectives of different parts of the world, of different phases of development, of economic status of countries, and that's good if you have interaction like that in your group when you are formulating your national position, but also your group position. It's only helpful and stimulating and enriching to have such a group.